Hello guys, in this video we'll continue our discussion on modern India. So we'll continue our journey on modern Indian history. So we'll focus two very important Governor Generals in this session. So that's Lord Cornwallis and Lord Wellesley. So we are going to cover the period between 1786 and 1805. We have already done with Lord Warren Hastings from 1773 to 1785. We have already covered, Regulating Act of 1773 and Pitt's India Act of 1784. So now when we talk about Lord Cornwallis, very important for four aspects: the police reform, the civil service reform, the judicial reform, the Cornwallis Code, and permanent settlement. So we'll cover that. And when we talk about permanent settlement, we will also discuss the Mahalwari settlement and the Rotwari settlement also. So that will cover that land revenue settlement part here itself. And then we move on to Lord Cornwallis and we discuss the important area, that's the subsidiary alliance, the concept of subsidiary alliance. Okay, so both of these are very important. Their time period is very important. That actually laid the foundation of British administration and expansion. So something on the legal side, right? Judicial reform, something on the revenue side, and then civil service reform, police reform. All these legacy we are continuing now also. That civil services, whether the police or judiciary, like rule of law, right? Equality before law, these concepts have been came into existence at this point of time in India. Okay, so there are some controversial land revenue settlement also, and then the subsidiary alliance also, that again we will be covering. But you can see there's a period that actually these developments actually shaping India's colonial future. So let's go step by step. Let's start with Lord Cornwallis. So the most important point that we can start with will be, civil services related. So guys, as you know, just 1 minute. Let me share the screen. Fine. So you already know about civil service reforms, right? So, and when we talk about Lord Cornwallis, so we are going to cover this period, 1786 to 1793. Okay. So 1786 to 1793, Lord Cornwallis. Okay. So first one we will be talking about will be civil service reforms. So he introduced civil services. Now, see, in general, if you get a question on Lord Cornwallis, they will ask you major contribution. So civil service reform, then you will talk about police reform, and then you will talk about judicial reform, and then you will talk about the permanent settlement. So this judicial reform is what you can call as, Cornwallis Code. So the legacy, if you see, the agrarian issues there, the agrarian unrest is there. So exploitation is there through permanent settlement and then administrative foundation. So these three are very, very important. And then this is a controversy or some agrarian distress, and that led to the, when we talk about famine later, 78, that period of time during Lord, Lytton's time. So one of the reason is the exploitative land revenue policy. Okay, we'll be coming to that. So when we talk about, let's start with the first one, the civil service reform. So here the point is very simple. He introduced civil services in India. So he is known as father of civil service. So in fact, this question was asked in 2013, prelims direct question. That time it's just one word question. Okay. So now when we talk about he introduced civil service, few things that you need to remember is initially it was for Europeans only, and the exam will be held in England, and high salaries were given so that there won't be corruption. And then, private trade and all those things were not allowed. The officials were not allowed, or barred from the private trade. So these points are very clear, only for Europeans, right? And then exam will be held in England. So it's again another aspect. High salaries, and the officials were banned or barred from the private trade. Now, the next one that we can discuss will be related to the police reform. So when we talk about police reform, see, during Lord Warren Hastings' time, I told you why the zamindars were quoting unrealistic amount during the time of, this bidding process for zamindariship. It was mainly because the zamindars were enjoying the power of policing also. So now it is going to end that power. So zamindars policing powers will no more be there. And police stations were established, thanas. Okay. So you can say one of the reform, police stations were established. Police reform, police stations were established, and the head of the police station will be sub-inspector equivalent like Daroga. So police station is headed by Daroga, and number of police stations will form a circle, and the circle is headed by superintendent of police. Okay, so police stations were established, police officials were appointed, police station is headed by Daroga, circle is headed by superintendent of police. And here one point that you need to remember is the police station were allocated on the basis of area and not population. So they'll ask you when consider the following, which is related to police reform. Police stations were allocated on the basis of population. No, it's not correct. Logically, it should be based on population, right? More the number of people, more police stations required. But here that's not the case. It is based on area. Sometimes some area may be 10%, so they have a police station. Some area may be 10,000 people, they may also have one police station. But the demands are entirely different. You have to cater to the people. So the logic is different here. So here it is based on area. Just keep this point in mind. I don't want you to make mistakes. Sometimes if you have not read between the lines and if you're not aware, chances there that you may think based on the logic, right? So logically, it should be based on population. It should be based on people. So number of people more, number of police stations should be more to prevent the law and order issues. So if you think with logic, there is a chance that you'll make a mistake. So it's based on area. So let me make it very clear. Okay. Now, again, a couple of questions that they have asked before. Straightforward question: who's known as the father of Indian civil service? Lord Cornwallis. In which year did Cornwallis introduce civil service reform? 1793. So these are pretty simple, straightforward questions. Apart from that, they have asked a mains question, like discuss the role of Lord Cornwallis in laying the foundation of Indian civil service. So you can say the Indian Civil Service ICS was introduced in 1793 by Cornwallis, and explain that in the body you can talk about the features, exclusion of Indians and only for Europeans, and how they control corruption, high salaries, and barred the officials, and all those exams will be held in England, and all those you can write. And then in conclusion, you can say that's the administrative foundation, but there is a discrimination. So this is what you can mention in case if you get a specific chances of specific question is less from that area. If they ask, it will be collectively, or if they want to ask a specific question, it could be Cornwallis Code that is related to judicial reform. Cool. So now, yeah, we were talking about police reform. So here again, the question, police reforms of Lord Cornwallis was based on population, area, revenue, district size. What's the answer? Area. Don't make a mistake there. Again, who became the head of the police circle under Cornwallis? So, like circle means this one I'm talking about. That's the superintendent of police, right? Again, you can get a mains question like explain the significance of Cornwallis police reform. How did they change the local power structure? So you need to start from Mughal time policing and zamindars power of policing and all those things, and then what are the reforms? And this is how you will be proceeding further. Cool. Now let's go with this one, judicial reforms. Okay, so here you can get question like Cornwallis Code, judicial reform. So here two important concepts, very important. Now also, if you see, there's the most important pillar of our constitution also, that is equality before law and what? Rule of law. Nobody is above law. Even the Governor General comes under the law. The law is supreme. So rule of law, very important, two important pillars of our constitution also, equality before law, rule of law. So who introduced? Lord Cornwallis. Okay, so this is why I told you it's very important this period. So he introduced equality before law, but again, when you talk about equality, this equality is among the Indians. Indian versus Indian, you will be treated equal. Indian versus a European, it will be different case. Okay, again, rule of law. Rule of law means law is supreme. Okay, now again, if you look at the structure of court, I hope you are aware that like At the lower level, there will be municipal court, right? And then court of registrar, and then district court. So municipal court, then court of registrar. I'm not writing it completely. You can write it down. And then above that, there will be district courts. And then district courts is further divided into like Diwani courts, like Diwani Adalats. And these courts are basically fixed courts, like a district court. So here, Diwani court, these are fixed courts, and these are for civil cases. Okay, and then uh, four new courts. This is something which you need to remember were established: Calcutta, Dhaka, Patna, Murshidabad. So let me talk about that also. Calcutta, Dhaka, Patna, and Murshidabad. Okay, so remember these four Diwani courts which were established. And then, so district court is what we are talking about. So Diwani court and then circuit courts. Circuit courts. Excuse me for this handwriting. This is the only way in which you can write. So circuit courts, and then this is for the criminal cases. Okay, and these are moving courts. Again, so here I told you already, right? Equality before law was introduced. So the caste-based discrimination or caste-based, class-based, gender bias in the testimony, the eyewitness. You see, two eyewitnesses coming, a male and a female. Male will be given priority. Hindu and a Muslim is coming. Muslim is given priority because in their the judge's opinion, Muslims will not lie. Okay, the religion prohibit that. Similarly, upper caste is given priority. Male and a female, male is given priority, and one male is considered as equal to two female. So if you need to overcome the testimony of one male, it will be equal if there is two female, and if you need to overcome, there should be three female testimonials. Okay, so that's how the situation was. So now everybody is equal, equality before law, and abolish this kind of caste-based, class-based, gender biases in the eyewitness scenarios. So the questions here that they can ask us, whatever they have asked, I can discuss. Which of the following were Diwani courts established under Cornwallis? So here they can twist it and they can ask you Dhaka, Patna, Calcutta, Murshidabad. You remember? They can ask you Bombay, Calcutta, Patna, Dhaka. Wrong. Dhaka, Madras, Calcutta, Patna. Wrong. Calcutta, Bombay, Madras, Murshidabad. Wrong. So you may see here the catch is you may go with option where Calcutta, Bombay, Madras. Why? Because these are the three important presidencies. But that's not the case here. Patna, Calcutta, Dhaka, Murshidabad. Why? Governor General of Bengal. So in and around that area. Cool. Now, Cornwallis introduced the concept of which among the following? Doctrine of lapse, dual concept, dual government, diarchy, rule of law. Rule of law. Okay, so again, a mains question if I want to give you, guys, I'm expecting that you'll quickly take down all these. That's the reason why I know I'm going with slightly higher pace, but still, this is very simple things, right? So here, a question can be Cornwallis Code laid the foundation of the modern judicial system in India. Discuss, comment, critically analyze. Very easy. Fine. So now let's move on to the next one, that the permanent settlement, the revenue settlement. Okay, so permanent settlement, write it completely. I'm doing this much only. 1793. Now who introduced? Now there is no question. Cornwallis, along with him his deputy John Shore. He become the next governor general. By that we'll discuss later. So here, why it is called as permanent settlement? Because revenue is permanently settled based on a base year. What is a base year? 1790, which means what? Whatever you are paying in 1790, the same you will pay. So it's fixed. It's a permanent settlement. Now, what's the advantage here for the state compared to the previous scenario? Previous scenario, there will be a bidding process and unrealistic amounts will be quoted during the bidding period by the zamindars to get that zamindariship because of the privileges and everything, and state never able to realize that. But here, you know what you're going to get because you fix the revenue. It's permanently fixed based on a base year 1790. Now, what's the structure? Now, there are some questions need to be addressed. Who will collect revenue? From whom the revenue will be collected? Right? Who will collect revenue? Whether the officer or a zamindar. From whom the revenue will be collected? Landowner or the cultivator? When it will be collected, before sowing or after cultivation? How much to be collected? 10%, 20%, 30%, 70%. Like these are the questions that need to be addressed here. So here, who will pay revenue? The peasants, the cultivator will pay. Who will collect? Zamindar will collect. Zamindar is the intermediary and Zamindar will collect and pay to the state. So this is a structure. Now, what's the revenue share here? Out of the collected revenue, 10 by 11, 10 out of 11 will go to the state. 1 out of 11 will go to the Zamindar. So Zamindar is now working for this 9%. So ultimately what Zamindar is getting? Zamindar is getting 9% of the revenue which is fixed. Now, here is the catch. Let's suppose revenue is fixed as 100. Okay. Now, how much state will get? State will get 91. How much Zamindar will get? Zamindar will get 9. Now, what the Zamindar will do? State fixed this. But do you think Zamindar will collect the revenue that's fixed by the state? No. Zamindars keep exploiting the peasants. He will charge 200. In that case, can state ask the Zamindar to give me, 91% of the 200? No, because as per state, it is fixed at 100, right? That's a permanently settled. So state will anyway get 91 only. And state expecting the Zamindar will get 9 only. But Zamindar, instead of charging 100 rupee, I'm just taking that percentage, in terms of rupee or whatever. Okay. Just to make it very simple, I'm taking a random number 100 and also take 200. So in this case, now the Zamindar is going to get 109. The extra 100 will go to Zamindar. State will still get 91. Where you are asked to collect 100, you collect 100, state will get 91. You collect 200, state will get 91. You collect 300, still the state will get 91 only. So here, who's getting that advantage? Zamindar keep on getting more. The peasants keep getting exploited. State keep getting the same. Zamindars keep getting more and more and more because of this exploitation. And there is something called as, a sunset law. This was asked before. Sunset law means if the Zamindars are not able to pay to the state before the sunset, which is fixed, the date is fixed to pay the revenue. So the Zamindars lose their rights if the revenue is unpaid before this. So that's why it is called a sunset law. Now the question is, so we understood who implemented, Cornwallis and John Shore. Structure we understood, percentage we understood. Now what is left out here? Which areas, right? So it was in the area where who implemented Cornwallis. So his areas mostly. So this will cover Bengal, Bihar, Orissa, and then some parts of Tamil Nadu, parts of Banaras, like that. So if you ask me what's the percentage area covered, 19% of British India. Now, why I'm talking about British India, if let's say this is the whole India, there are some areas which are still not under the control of British. So this is what the area which are under the British, out of which 19%, predominantly Bengal, Bihar, Orissa, that region, parts of Tamil Nadu, parts of Benares, this permanent settlement was implemented. Fine. So I hope you understood this permanent settlement. Now let's look at the consequence of permanent settlement. This can be a mains question. So first and most important, this one, absentee landlordism. See, guys, I told you already there is a sunset law. So if Zamindar 1, who could be a traditional Zamindar, is not able to pay, now what will happen? The state will appoint another Zamindar, Zamindar 2. So the Zamindar first one could be a traditional Zamindar. Second one, who's looking at that 9% commission that you are getting for no work, and he get that Zamindarship. He don't have any, connection with the land or land equations or the peasants. He's just looking for that 9% from the business perspective. So he won't be present there. He is not actually landlord, right? So he won't be present there. Now he will ask some others, right? So what will happen is he won't be present. Like these are maybe urban merchants, they become zamindars. So that is what you mean by absentee landlordism. Now at the same time, if he is not there, what he can do, he will ask some others to collect. Some X he will assign. So this X may assign Y, and this Y may assign another person Z to collect. So if Zamindar is getting 9%, he will tell that I'll take 5% and I'll give you 4%. Now this 4% guy will tell him that I'll give you 2%. Now this 2% guy will tell him that I'll give 1%. Right? But this 1% is very less. So he will start exploiting the peasant more and more and more. So this chain of intermediaries getting more, the exploitation of the peasant gets more. So these are the two main issues. So absentee landlordism and chain of intermediaries. Cool. So apart from that, so these are two specific issues which are related to permanent settlement. Now we will be discussing the other two settlement also. So there are some general issues which are common, like high taxation, 60 to 70% of the produce, there are input cost, but you are charged on production. So high taxation, which is general, rural indebtedness due to money lenders, because see, if you are not paying tax, the peasant not able to pay the tax, he will be evicted. So peasant will lose the ownership if he fail to pay the tax. So what he will do now, the option is go to some money lender and take money at a higher interest and pay the tax to zamindar now, or the state. Now after some time the interest will keep on increasing and ultimately he will lose this land to money lender. So money lender also becomes zamindar, right? So more money lenders are coming, that lead to rural indebtedness and exploitation, eviction of the rural, this peasants, and that lead to rural landless labor. So you can say high taxation is one issue, indebtedness due to money lenders is another issue. Because of eviction, these guys become landless labor, another issue, and that lead to more people working in small amount of land. That's what you call as disguised unemployment or unemployment. That lead to poverty, that lead to inequality. All these are problems. But what are two specific problems here which you are not supposed to miss? Absentee landlordism, which is very specific to permanent settlement, chain of intermediaries, which is very specific to permanent settlement. When you understand the structure of other two, you will know that why it is specific for this. Okay, cool. Now let's look at this one. So if I want to ask you a question, permanent settlement was introduced in 1793. Sunset law, you understood. Zamindars, how much they will get, you understood, right? 9%. State will get 91%. Bengal, Bihar, Orissa, parts of Tamil Nadu, parts of Benares, total 19%. Consequences, landlord, absentee landlordism, chain of intermediaries. Apart from that, high taxation, indebtedness, rural landlessness, poverty, inequality, all these again are very clear. Now, under permanent settlement, the share of zamindars, how much? 9%. Okay. Now, a main question could be permanent settlement solved the state's revenue problem, but created new agrarian problems. Evaluate. So here, if you need to answer this question, you have to go back to Warren Hastings period, where we discussed about a particular revenue settlement, what was the issue there and how that problem solved here. I hope that area is very clear, and then discuss upon that. Now, let's look at Rottweiler settlement. So since we discussed about permanent settlement, let me cover the other two here itself. So it was introduced by, this question was asked in 2016 something, Thomas, Munro and Reed. Okay. And it was introduced in which area? Madras, Bombay, maximum area covered by this one. And then central provinces. Central provinces, it's a huge area. Okay. So, here the structure is the peasant and state will be in direct contact. Like there will be an officer who's appointed by the state, will collect revenue from the peasant, and his job is to collect revenue that's collected. The post was created. So the officer, so that means there is no intermediary. So will there be any chain of intermediary? Will this officer appoint another officer? No, he can't. That's his job. In case of zamindars, that happened, but chain of intermediaries won't be there. Will there be absentee landlordism here? No, because it is not landlord. So there is no question of ownership is given to the peasant. So there is no question of absentee landlordism. That's why I told you that two are very specific to permanent settlement. Fine. So areas you need to remember, and this is around 51%. Now, previous one 19, this one 51. So it's around 70% covered. So 51% of British India. Okay. So absentee landlordism and chain of intermediaries is no more there. But other problems, high taxation, indebtedness. Here also, if the peasant is not paying the revenue, he will lose the land. So he'll, in case if the crop failure is there, still he have to pay. So from where he get the money? Money lenders will come. Money lenders means charging high rate of interest. ultimately indebtedness, and that lead to, eviction from the land, and that lead to, uh, landless labor, and then disguised unemployment, poverty, inequality, all you can mention. Fine. Now, what could be a question here? This is a question which was asked. Reward system was introduced by Thomas Munro and Reed. Okay. So options like Cornwallis, Thomas Munro, Reed, Holt, Mackenzie, John Shore. This was a previous prelims question. Mahalwari settlement was introduced. Okay, next one, Mahalwari settlement. Let's talk about that also. So Mahalwari settlement, here it was introduced by Mahalwari settlement. So it was basically introduced by Holt Mackenzie, 1830s. Areas, first one, eastern part of India, right? And then Bengal, Bihar, Orissa, parts of Tamil Nadu, Benares. Then south and central areas are covered with Mahalwari settlement. This is in the northern part. So like western UP, Punjab, Haryana, that region. When I talk about Punjab, Haryana, that area will be covered. And western UP, it's again good amount of area, around 30% area. So Punjab, Haryana, western UP, like that. So here, the structure is like this: peasant, and then the village panchayat or the mahal will collect revenue and state will collect from there. So panchayat act as the intermediary here. Compared to the other two, exploitation is less and it covered around 30%. But common problems like high taxation and everything is here. Money lenders and all these are here also. But absentee landlordism is no more there because there is landlord is peasant only. Now, previous case also, permanent settlement ownership is with the zamindar. Reward settlement and Mahalwari settlement ownership is with the peasant. Okay, so that is covered anyway. So who implemented? Holt Mackenzie. Now let's quickly discuss about Lord Wellesley. Lord Wellesley. So I'm skipping John Shore period here, 1790. After, see, who was the deputy of Lord Cornwallis when he implemented permanent settlement? It's John Shore, I told you. So 1793 to 98 period, John Shore will be the Governor General. But exam wise, if you see, there is no relevance. So I'm skipping that. So let's look at Lord Wellesley and his expansionist policy. So the key policy here that we need to cover is subsidiary alliance. Okay. So see, it's a military arrangement for the local rulers who are facing threats. So the origin is when the French governor in 1740s, this question was also asked, a French governor, his name was Duplex, in 1740s, he, gave his army to Hyderabad. So that's actually the origin of this. And Wellesley, so that was like a help, military help. But Wellesley, why it is important is because he modified this and he expanded this and he used it like not, and later, this annexations and everything which is coming during the period of Dalhousie, this actually helped him. So here he was able to maintain a huge army without spending anything from the exchequer at the expense of the local rulers. So that's how he was able to keep his army across India, okay, without spending much from the exchequer. Now there are some conditions also, like if you are a local ruler who are facing threats from neighboring rulers, then you can get the help from British. But there are some conditions like no foreigners should be in your army except English. So condition 1, no foreigner should be employed in your army except English. Okay. Now, second condition, like if there are any treaties, it could be a war treaty, it could be a peace treaty, it should be subjected to British approval. In fact, it was like named like you should inform the British, but technically, ultimately, when you are saying you have to inform the British means you have to get British approval. It's like that only, and it's like you are surrendering your sovereignty And in fact, Tipu never wanted to sign subsidiary alliance because of this, and later he was forced to sign. So all those things we'll discuss in the later discussions. Okay. So also apart from that, a British resident need to be stationed. A British resident need to be stationed in the capital of that local state, and entire expense of that British resident need to be taken care by the ruler, his entire expenses. Okay. Now, so these are the three conditions. In return, what are the promise? British promise that there won't be any interference, but they never honored, they never or hardly did that. They always interfered in the local matters, and always this protection from external threats. So these are the two conditions. They will not interfere in the internal matters, but they hardly followed that, and protect from the. In fact, they became the threat later, right? So, okay. Now, guys, let me give you two questions. Who introduced subsidiary alliance in India? Duplex, Cornwallis, Lord Wellesley, Dalhousie. Lord Wellesley. Subsidiary alliance, when you see, it's Lord Wellesley. Duplex, so that's some military help. When I talk about subsidiary alliance, entire concept has changed. That concept has been used to expand, his military presence, if not expanding territory, because at this point of time, that expansion of territory was not there in their mind. That came later. Okay. Then that came later, especially after this 1813 Charter Act and 1833 Charter Act. Especially after 1833, they started, annexations, expansions. Okay, now one more question. Tipu Sultan refused to sign subsidiary alliance because just now I have mentioned there was a clause, right? In case of war treaty or peace treaty, you have to first inform it to the British. Inform is a word which is very strategically used, I would say. In fact, you need to get that permission from the British. So it's like you are surrendering your sovereignty, and because of that, Tipu refused to sign the treaty. We can get questions in mains also. So subsidiary alliance was an instrument of British expansion. Discuss with example. Okay. Now, okay, under this, we need to discuss which all states signed. So the first state or order wise, they can ask you, chronology wise, they can ask you, match the following also, they can ask you. 1798, Hyderabad joined, and 1799, I told you, Mysore was not ready to sign this, but after the death of Tipu, they signed it in 1799, because Tipu never want to sign this, as if you're signing this means you have to get permission from British in case of any war treaty or peace treaty. So he never want to sign this. He was forced to sign, he never signed. Instead, he fought a war, and then he died in that. After that, Mysore signed, and that's why Tipu's death in history is marked as, you can remember this, honorable death than a dishonorable pact. So what pact is they are talking about? It is a subsidiary alliance. So when you get the statement, Tipu's death in history is known as, or considered as, or treated as an honorable death than a dishonorable pact, you will be talking about subsidiary alliance. You need to discuss why it is a dishonorable pact and why he refused to sign this. That element of sovereignty that you have to bring in, and then he preferred to fight against the British. He died in that war, and then after that, Mysore signed the treaty. So his death is considered as an honorable death than a dishonorable pact, than signing a dishonorable pact. Cool. So again, 1801, Awadh. Okay. And there was one condition, right? You won't interfere in this and all those things. But Awadh signed the treaty. But in 1856, later we will be discussing during Dalhousie period, 1856, you will see one of the reason for 1857 revolt is annexation of Awadh. So Awadh was annexed in a different reason. I'll talk about that in detail later. So 1856, Awadh was annexed as a state which signed subsidiary alliance. Then again, 1802, Peshwa signed this treaty, and 1803, Sindh also signed this treaty, and Sindh was annexed in 1843. So that time, the person who was responsible for annexation of Sindh was Charles Napier, and he made a statement that we don't have any right to annex Sindh, and still we do it. What a piece of rascality it is. Something like that. There is a statement that has been recorded. I'm not able to reproduce exactly the same, but it's like that only. Cool. So that's about what subsidiary alliance is all about. Now, some facts. Fort William College was established in 1800. So, Lord Wellesley, established by Lord Wellesley, Fort William College, 1800. So, what's the purpose of this college? The purpose was to train the new civil servants in Indian language and culture. So, 1793 civil services has been introduced, Indian civil service has been introduced. So, newly appointed civil servants, they are going to take administration. So, they need to be taught about Indian culture and everything, and Indian language also. Now, also, if you're getting into service and based on the cadre allocated, you'll be taught the local languages and culture and everything. So, the same. So, the purpose was the same. Okay, and it was actually closed in 1802 because there was some conflict between court of directors and board of control. And if you see, the first and only principal of this college was John Gilchrist. So Fort William College, 1800, Wellesley to train the newly appointed civil servants in the local language, and closed in 1802. The only principal, John Gilchrist, first principal, John Gilchrist, to remember. So, guys, that's all about these two Governor Generals. Important facts we covered: Cornwallis legacy we discussed, administrative reforms we discussed, civil services, policing, judiciary, and we also discussed about the land revenue, permanent settlement, the agrarian distress associated with that. And when we talked about permanent settlement, we also covered the Mahalwari settlement and the Rotwari settlement as well. And then Wellesley's legacy, mainly expansionist policy through subsidiary alliance, and together foundation of colonial administration plus instruments of exploitation. So that's all what we need to discuss in this session. Any questions, you can comment here. So question can be: Fort William College was established by Lord Wellesley, who was the first principal, John Gilchrist. The William College was closed in 1802, right? Also, you can get a question: explain the significance of Fort William College in shaping British administration in India. Okay. Fine. So that's all. So see you guys in the next video. Thank you so much. I see you in the next video.